salads, and warm pita breads. All made with locally sourced high-quality ingredients. Dine in or take it out today at Aleppo Kebab. Better, tastier Mediterranean food at a fast food price. Now open on Blackstone and Sierra near the DMV in Fresno.
Want to work somewhere fun, flexible, and rewarding? Me and Ed's is hiring. We're looking to expand our team with full and part-time positions at over 40 locations. Join our growing company as a delivery driver or valued team member today. For more information on job descriptions or to apply, go online at meandeds.com or visit your nearest location. Me and Ed's is hiring. Fill out an application.
Every day, the choices you make matter, especially for your business and the community around you. When you choose to bank local with FFB Bank, your deposits don't sit on the sidelines. They help fund local businesses, create jobs, and strengthen the neighborhoods you serve. With business accounts designed for you, local decision-making, and a team that understands your goals, FFB is here to help you grow. Because your success is everyone's success. Be the one who builds community while building your business. Visit ffb.bank. Member FDIC, Equal Opportunity Lender.
Attention Central Valley. Fashion furniture buyers are headed to the High Point Furniture Market to bring in new styles and what's next, which means it's time to reset the floor. Save up to 50% on clearance, closeouts, overstocks, and one-of-a-kind items. When they're gone, they're gone. No restocks. Plus, special financing is available. It's the Reset the Floor sale happening now, only at Fashion Furniture. There's nothing like it in all of California.
Sports fans of the Central Valley, are you ready to step up your game day grilling? Step into the Butcher Boss and discover winning flavors the champions crave. Ask about their 5 for $35 deal, where you can feed up to 5 people for $35 every day. Located right off the 41 north of Avenue 11, stop by the Butcher Boss today and become the boss of your barbecue.
Armament! 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 Say it with him. Armament, your go-to team for residential and commercial roofing done right. This summer, score big. Get $1,000 off your roofing project when you sign up by the end of April. Don't wait for the heat. Lock it in now. Visit ArmamentCoatingsAndRoofing.com for your free quote. ArmamentCoatingsAndRoofing.com. Armament! Armament! Armament!
Hey guys, Phil Bonatti from Behind the Bench. Spring is here, and that means more fans on the move, more cars on the road, and unfortunately, more accidents. When the temperatures rise, so do tempers. The roads get busier and the drivers get more aggressive. So whether you're heading to the game or just getting across town, know that if the unexpected happens, you're not alone. The team at Davis and Van Wagenen has your back. They know the road, they know the law, and they fight to get what you deserve. Stay safe this spring. Call the name Fresno trusts. Davis and Van Wagenen.
I've been driving commercial vehicles for 20 years. Every big road across this country. Anywhere the work takes me, that's where I'm driving. But that's not where I'm going. I'm going to see my little girl graduate high school and my boy get married, and to teach my grandkids a thing or two. And I realize everyone out there is going somewhere. So it just makes sense to help each other get there safely. Let's all get where we're going. Learn more at www.sharetheroadsafely.gov.
Paid for by the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration.
I believe these lines, the Bulldog Outfit boy alongside. We'll take you to 3:10 today. We'll take you to 3 and then a little bit of ESPN business before the Giants pregame, because the Giants have that 3:10 free and the 3:40 start as they start the road trip in Philly that will result in not only the games there but also down in Tampa St. Pete before they come back home to host the Padres next week. It means that Phil will not have a show today, understandably, with the Giants starting early. I'll tell you all about the schedule because it is a baseball-centric one. A little bit later on, courtesy of Ed Dunkel and his outstanding business, precision civil engineering, planning, land surveying, civil engineering, landscape architecture, construction management. It's all there under one roof. More information, 449-4500 or precisioneng.com. SportsLine.net. And when we go over the schedule for both 1430 and 790, I'll tell you about the great fundraising that Ed does through the Lyles College of Engineering on campus at Fresno State. Jackson, our de facto co-host, with me momentarily. A lot to talk about today. Basketball acquisition, certainly Jackson's view of the spring preview of the last weekend. There are some issues bat and ball sports-wise that I need to cover, and there are things in the news about conference expansion that our buddy Robert asked about, potential expansion, and also, since I brought up yesterday the situation with Sorsby and his gambling addiction and what that could mean when a star player is gambling to the extent of 1,000-plus bets being made, it's relevant to talk about now the Fordham situation and the two guys that have been banned for life for their involvement in a scheme to throw a game against Duquesne. So we have a chance to talk about that. We will. So a lot to do in this hour with Jackson, who will be up momentarily. But first, Brother Lee Dogs, as they do every day, want to spend some time with you, beginning with Lee's Air Plumbing and Heating. They allow me the time every day to tell you about the weather. Again, terrific local people. They have been in NorCal and Central California since 1981. You see the avocado green and blue trucks all over the place. I've had them in to do work even during COVID. Very competitive pricing, wonderful people to have around, really professional, very timely. You can schedule your appointment if you want on the web at leesair.com or give them a call at 825-5337, which is 825-LEES. As far as the forecast goes, the 10-day looks terrific. There does not appear to be any chance of rain. Now, we're going to be in May by the end of the week, and at that point, it's highly unlikely we're going to get rain on the valley floor. I know today there was a chance in the upper reaches and the foothill communities, etc., to maybe have a very quick shower and maybe even a thunderstorm or two. I don't know how that will play out this afternoon, but it's not going to happen on the valley floor, and it may very well be that we are done with precip on the valley floor until somewhere in November. We've had it happen before. If we get a few more storms, that would be terrific. But as far as creature comforts, it is still cool in the morning. The lows are in the mid-50s to the low 60s, and the highs 75 today, and then we go 80 tomorrow, 85 Thursday, 87 Friday, up to 88 on Saturday, and then we fall back down 82 Sunday, and then 76, 75, 80, 83 throughout the 10-day. So just perfect weather, a little bit cool in the morning maybe, but it is just absolutely outstanding to be outside doing whatever you're doing, whether it's participating or doing your yard work or being a spectator somewhere. So we certainly enjoy the weather at this time of year, and we thank everybody at Lee's for allowing us the time to tell you about the 10-day. Again, leesair.com, 825-5337, 825-LEES. And, of course, they sponsor the Lee's Air Hotline. That's the number you want to mark down, because not only we bring the guests up, but Phil, when he's on air with his fine show Behind the Bench, can take callers from the general public. 559-320-1430. That is the Lee's Air Hotline. Before we bring Jackson up, who is waiting patiently on that Lee's Air Hotline, our good friend Joe Cruz, Superior Pipe and Stainless Supply, to tell you about his business and allow me the time to tell you how to donate to Fresno State, something Joe has done for over 3 decades, celebrating now the 26th anniversary of his fine business at 4529 North Marty Avenue in Town Suite 103. You can always give them a call at 266-7473, which is 266-PIPE, or go to the web for more information at superiorpipeusa.com, or Gabe, who works for Joe, has a direct email, gabe.sbs@gmail.com. Talk about this every day. Pipe fittings, valves, sanitary fittings, food-grade chemical hoses, suction hoses. It's all there from an industrial standpoint under one housing at 4529 North Marty Avenue, Suite 103. Anything you might need if you are someone working around a valve, for instance, is there for you. If you're a plant maintenance person, if you're working tanker delivery service, working around a boiler, maybe at a dairy, if a valve is critical to your business, if it goes down, your business goes down with it, and your bottom line, of course, is impacted greatly. One of the great aspects of Joe's business, not only the family-friendly nature where you can give him a call or stop in and talk to him person to person, but same-day estimate, same-day service. If it's a minor issue, keep you up and running. If it's a major issue, they'll get on it right away there and make sure that you're back to full song as quickly as possible. The biggest thing is to avoid that catastrophic hit to your financial bottom line, and Joe really knows how to take care of your business. And if you stop in after he does address your needs, what he will do, if you have some time, to tell you what he has done in regard to benefiting Fresno State over the 3+ decades, and we'll tell you right now the best way to go about it as far as donating to the Bulldog cause is to go to the main website at gobulldogs.com. There's a donate link at the top. You can't miss it. Click on that. I'll take you to different areas of potential donation. BulldogFoundation.org has a link. Club Red is under that header. That's for former student athletes to get involved at the university. Major giving societies have their area there. The Green V Society and Myers Champion Circle are right there. And other ways to give. The Valley Co-op, which is very important with the matching funds that you can use for yourself and for the university as far as donating and being able to have those matching funds around. Also, Valley Fueled is there, and then the sports clubs, of course, where you give directly to the team you choose. All your money goes right to that club. For instance, Quarterback Club for football, Timeout Club for men's basketball. Jack Fertig with me Wednesdays to talk basketball. Board of Directors Timeout Club. He said you can call him directly in his cell for more information. Doesn't cost that much to join. It's a great business and social organization, and you get a lot of inside information. Vance and the coaching staff there during the meetings very frequently. Jack said give him a call for more info, 559-287-3305, or you can hit him up on his email, fertigjack@AOL.com. There's also links for other men's and women's sports, for instance, Dugout Club for baseball is right there. And then finally, under more, the single word header, you have information for tickets and parking, events on campus, and a lot of other things as well. So it's kind of one-stop shopping there at gobulldogs.com. And Joe Cruz would urge you to check that out and try to give the best you can, because it is going to be a grassroots effort that keeps Fresno State competitive as we head to the PAC in just a couple of months. And speaking of that, of course, beginning on July 1, we are once again the flagship of all of Fresno State athletics, this time solely at 1430. Last time it was 940 and 1430. This time, under Chris's aegis, it is 1430. It is the first time that true local ownership and the university have been in a marketing partnership, and it's really critically important, and we'll tell you more about it when we get to July 1. And, of course, for us, it means not only all the marketing and everything to benefit Fresno State, but you have the opportunity for all your sports to be under the header of 1430 and 790. And, obviously, Paul is always with us talking, and Pat and Cam and the entire gang will be back. So we look forward to that. We had a lot of years and great success there in years gone by. Anyway, thanks to Joe Cruz, Superior Pipe and Stainless Supply, for allowing us the time to tell you how to donate to Fresno State. Thanks to Ed Dunkel, Precision Civil Engineering. He'll allow me the time a little bit later to tell you about our upcoming schedules. And thanks to our friends at Lee's Air Plumbing and Heating. And on that Lee's Air hotline, 559-320-1430. It is the ever-patient, the king of all he surveys, the man, the myth, the legend that is the king of the barkboard, Bark Boy himself, Sir Jackson Moore. Bark Boy, how are you?
I'm doing well, Tony. How are you?
Doing just fine. After that damn commercial, right? But mercifully, that's done. We haven't seen that commercial for what, about 2 months now? Is that right?
I think so.
There's a lot of others. There's a lot of others I'd like to deep six, like the Liberty Bibberty commercial, where you have the two imbeciles. It's great when two imbeciles can get together and find love, Jackson. Okay, that's all I'm telling you. All right, so. Isn't that what the world is made up of? It's two imbeciles hopelessly alone that suddenly meet. Isn't that what we all look forward to, Jackson?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. There's no way for you to answer that question. That was a good answer, though. A chuckle and a oh, yeah, and the prayer that I get away from that. But you know the commercial I'm talking about, Liberty Bibberty, right? So, yeah, all right. That and Doug Jr., And, his family ought to check what water Doug Jr. has been drinking, because the biggest thing is, why does Doug Jr. at age 8 have a full mustache? That's the biggest question I have. Never mind his attitude about insurance, okay? So, am I watching too much TV, Jackson? Is there a possibility that's the case? I don't know. I have no choice. That's part of my job. All right, a lot to talk about today. By the way, I upfront those that asked again about the softball situation. I went over the machinations yesterday. I'll talk to Matt Norville before he starts the series again. Very important series against San Diego State on Thursday through Saturday, because they need to get everything over with, because they do start the conference tournament a week from tomorrow in Reno. Again, for the Bulldogs to make sure they're in that top 6, it's pretty simple. After they picked up that win, the one after the crushing walk-off losses the last couple of weekends with games they were so close to winning, coming back to win Sunday against a good Nevada team, and that same venue, by the way, they have to head back to if they're going to make the conference tourney. Fresno State's in a position with San Diego State in to be sure that nothing happens with Boise State or with San Diego State, or an issue you might have with New Mexico if they start to lose and all of a sudden it comes down to the two of you. Fresno State needs to go into that 3-game set Thursday, Friday, Saturday at Margie Wright with the attitude they've got to win 2 or 3. If they win 2 or 3 against San Diego State, they're going to be in the conference tournament. If they don't win 2 or 3, it might depend upon what happens at Boise. And keep in mind, like Fresno State, Boise State and New Mexico have one of the lower 3 in the conference with them. It's an interesting setup, and that you've got 3 very good teams at the top that are going to get there: Grand Canyon in Nevada and UNLV. They're going to be in. Then you have the middle 3, Fresno State, New Mexico, and probably Boise State, that are sitting there in great position, while the 3 of them play the bottom 3 this final weekend, all at home, which is Utah State. Fresno State, of course, has San Diego State, and then Boise State has San Jose State. So the advantage of the middle 3 is they figure to win. So if you're in Fresno State's shoes right now, if you know that Boise State and New Mexico figure to win, you had better win at least 2 or 3 yourself. Had you lost Sunday, you would have had to have swept the Aztecs. Right now, if you get swept by the Aztecs, they'll take you out. So if you're going there, you go with the mindset as a spectator. The Bulldogs, to be sure, need to win 2 or 3 over the weekend. I'll talk to Matt about it on Thursday. All right, that having been said, I want to turn to Jackson right now to talk about basketball. Hennig comes in from Cal Baptist. Perry comes in from BYU. I'll talk to Vance when we have a little bit of time here as we roll into June. I'll get him on air. But, Jackson, what do you make of this? It appears there's a greater accumulation of talent, but the question comes back again, is there time to get the talent to mesh? What is your point of view about, A, the talent and the time it's going to take and the paucity of time you have to get this put together once again?
Yeah, well, first things first, if you can acquire better talent, you got a better chance to put it together. And these were 2 pretty significant gets. The point guard position and the center position are 2 of the toughest in the transfer portal market to land on. And looks like the Bulldogs did pretty well with both here. KJ Perry, he was the number 1 junior college recruit in the country at one point, ends up going to BYU last year. Kind of a weird situation where he got there mid-season and they just decided to redshirt him. They were already doing pretty well when he showed up. Of course, they went to the NCAA tourney as a 6 seed. So there wasn't a whole lot of minutes to go around for a guy that just showed up mid-season. But had a bunch of offers, had a bunch of schools after him in the portal as well. So for Fresno State to get that type of point guard to come in, it's a pretty big deal. And then at center as well, a lot of schools wanted Brady Hennig probably as a backup or maybe even a third stringer. There was a lot of Power 4 schools coming after him. A lot of money was being tossed his way to take a lesser role, but I think Fresno State was fortunate. They found one of those guys that was more motivated by playing time, so that's a big one here. Didn't have started most of the games for Cal Baptist last year, saw 27 minutes in the NCAA tournament game against Kansas, which should be pretty valuable. Pretty much held his own when he was out there. Still think I'd like to see another kind of complimentary, maybe a more athletic center to go with him, but really good start right here. Now they're up to 9 players on the roster right now. It's filling out pretty well. Hopefully they can get some type of off-ball scorer to try to account for losing Jake Heidbreeder. If they do that, it feels like they're on a pretty good track here to upgrade the roster.
I've asked you many times about playing in that system, and we've certainly talked about the difficulty as opposed to what happened in high school or at JC in this day and age of college basketball, having the time to keep people in your system. And we've seen Vance have to compromise the last 2 years. We have not seen him run the true system he'd like. The pressure defense hasn't been there because they don't have the depth. And offensively, they haven't had the coordination that they would need because of the repetition. Jackson, is it possible? You're right. I mean, it's axiomatic because it happens to be true. The better the athlete you're bringing in, the greater the chance they're going to mesh, okay? But is it realistic to think that you can ever, if you're in Vance's shoes, or any coach that has a system that's been successful based upon longevity of that system, that you can, in a single year, run it the full song, or do you have to compromise at least somewhat to be able to move forward and still be able to fit it within the confines of the very limited time you have to put it together with a bunch of new faces?
Yeah, you've got to compromise it some, and I think what we've seen the last couple of years is they've been so limited by the time the rosters dwindled down that they could only do so much. We saw in the first year they had to play zone defense for crying out loud, which I think Coach Wahlberg said was something he hadn't done in like 30 years of coaching. So that's kind of the spots that they've been in so far. If you have enough bodies, theoretically, you could run the press at least more often. They haven't done it much, and I think that's one of the more fun aspects of what the system did at the high school level around here. Fresno City, I don't know how realistic it is for a Pac-12 team to be pressing all game, but we've seen even when they've been able to in spurts, it's been something that's given opponents challenges. So I would like to think that they could put enough bodies together to try to do a little bit more of that. But again, it's tough. Also, I don't know how thrilled players are maybe to come in and do that. The offensive system is something that's definitely attractive, and you hope you get enough players that are versatile enough where they can unlock more of the system that they haven't gotten to. What I see so far, I think they've got guards that can drive a bit better than what the Bulldogs have had the last couple of years. I think they're going to be more of a 2-point guard type system this year, which is typically what Coach Wahlberg likes to run, but they've been really just riding on the back of Zayon Collins the last 2 years. They haven't had many other point guard options behind him, so I think they're going to have a little more versatility with the ball handlers. And then what I hope we see in the coming weeks is a little more shooting progress at the wings. If you can drive well, if you've got those shooting threats on the wings, and then just a nice, reliable center who can finish off those layups if the defense helps over too far, you've got pretty much all you need. But I think what we've seen so far is a few players do a few certain things, and they've really had to cater what they do offensively to that. And hopefully they get enough players and a high enough talent level this year where they can do a little bit more of the basics.
Well, you're so right, and the draw and kick is a great concept, whether you do it with dribble, drive, or passing, whatever you might do. But the bottom line is, we've talked particularly 2 years ago, but to a large extent last year, the inconsistency. You can have a guy standing wide open who can spin the basketball till he has it completely comfortable in his hands. He can have the logo wherever he wants it, right? If you're going to miss the damn shot, it's not going to do you any good. So, the great premise would be you kick for open threes. When the defense overcompensates, it turns into a contested three, which means a back cut in a dunk or a layup. So if it's threes and layups, everybody's pleased. The mid-range is something that Vance has kind of conceded that they're going to bring back in with certain guys, but they've got to make the threes in this day and age. So, getting open is one thing, hitting it is another, and hopefully the third year, it's going to happen. I'm waiting to see because the talent level is better, and as you brought up, while there are some really good teams in the pack and you have lost a couple of the bottom feeders in the conference as far as wins and losses, meaning San Jose State and Air Force, you still have a conference that you're leaving behind that had good teams like New Mexico. UNLV was very athletic, etc. And I think, Jackson, what you have said is probably true. You bring a Gonzaga in, and obviously Oregon State and Washington State in the fold now. it is probably not a wash. It's probably a little stronger, but it's not exponentially more difficult. So if Fresno State can move up their talent level a little bit, they do have a chance to compete. They're not rolling into the ACC or the SEC or the Big Ten right now, correct?
Yeah, basically there's been about a line in the net rankings where Fresno State has been able to win or not. And if that's, say, top 80, well, I mean, most of the Mountain West have lived in there, and it's been very difficult to beat those teams. It just basically hasn't happened for a couple of years now. So it doesn't quite matter if you're facing number 5 Gonzaga or number 68 New Mexico, per se. It's just those games have been the same in the loss column no matter what. But you throw in Texas State, hopefully for Fresno State's case, Oregon State and Washington State don't bounce back too far. They were in that beatable range in the rankings this past year. We're able to compete with Colorado State. So I'd say, there's not any more games that are going to be difficult to lose in the schedule. And if you replace those 4 Air Force San Jose State games with winnable non-conference games, you could, the path to winning more games total is there, but to finish much higher in the Pac-12 standings still is going to take a lot of work to get that over that hump.
Yeah, you're right. And look, it is going to be a better basketball conference. Don't misunderstand. It's just as compared to what's going to happen in football, and in particular what's going to happen in baseball, where it is exponentially more difficult in baseball. It's just been a very tough year, and next year they had better have them hitched up pretty tight, because it is going to be really tough when you bring Dallas Baptist in, when you bring the bat and ball abilities that Texas State already has, and Oregon State and Washington State are both in. Washington State's already been there, but Oregon State in. That's going to be tough. Football is going to be tougher. Basketball will be tougher, but not to the extent of the other two. So there is a chance to at least niche your way in toward that middle. I don't know if you can get to the top of the conference as far as top echelon, but there is a chance. And Jackson, we know, and Vance knows, and everybody knows, this is the make or break year. No doubt about it, right? Coming up.
Yeah, you got to show some more progress. I think what we're seeing this offseason looks like a roster that's continuing to trend the right way. Again, a couple of spots they need to fill to feel good about upgrading overall, but it seems like the dollars that are behind the program right now appear to be reeling in more players than they've gotten of that quality. I mean, last year's roster only had 2 new transfers. Bulldogs are up to, I believe, 5 right now from the D1 level. I think we're going to see probably 7 or 8 by the time it's all said and done. They won't have to be relying on the European market quite as much, it looks like, based on what's happened so far. So it seems like they've stepped up behind the scenes, and you hope that it translates to the court this season.
Yeah, and then when I mention football, by the way, I'm not denigrating UNLV or New Mexico. They've had better years lately, but they're going to have to show long-term consistency before they become as viable as some of the teams that left with Fresno State, like Boise State or Colorado State or Utah State, that have had more consistently successful years there. So it's going to be a very interesting conference, and it does, again, beg the question, and Robert brought it up, and we've talked about it, and I've brought this up, that if you want to talk about the Pac, I don't like to refer to it as the Pac-12 because there aren't 12 teams, but then again, the Big Ten has almost double the amount of teams that they're supposed to have. So mathematics has not been a strong suit, all right? The Big 12 has a lot more than 12 teams. I just call it the Pac. For the Pac, as I mentioned, if you want to talk about their letter grade right now, entering into this particular iteration of the conference, it's an incomplete right now, because it's not so much what is in the Pac-8 right now. I'm talking about football. It's where they go from here, how they get to 10 to 12 to maybe ultimately 16 and beyond. And Jackson, since Robert asked about it, a couple of things. One, you and I have addressed this before. He asked about the logical travel partner for Texas State. I brought this up, and I know you agree with me. It would be UT San Antonio. It gives you the ability to have kind of the center of Texas, where, we look at the north part of Texas, and we look mainly at, the Dallas Cowboys dominate the entire state, but that's professionally. But everything that happens in Austin really casts a giant shadow over the entirety of college football in the state of Texas. So you say, and I know you've got North Texas up there, whatever, but by and large, the northern part of the state is going to belong to Austin and the University of Texas. Down south, particularly in the southeast, Houston, a big metro area, is there. You've got other schools around that area. But when you get toward the middle of the state, if you will, if you could put UT San Antonio as a travel partner with Texas State, of course, is in San Marcos, Jackson, I think you have the real viable pairing there geographically in what is a very large state, of course, landmass-wise. The complication is their deal right now. They are recent members of the American Conference. From what I understand, Jackson, it's tough for them financially to get out. But if they could get out, are they the best choice for the Pac?
I would say so. We've seen them just recently, the last few years, have some pretty strong football years, be in or around the top 25 at times. The market obviously is ideal. It's not terribly far away from Texas State, but it still I think would be valuable. And then you'd have their travel partners, as mentioned. I think what I'm curious to see these next couple of years, UTSA and Texas State kind of made the leap around the same time. They were kind of on the same trajectory, and then UTSA gets to the American, and all of a sudden they really take off. So if Texas State can use the Pac-12 to its advantage, if they're able to attract recruits at a higher level than UTSA is to the Pac compared to the American, that might ramp up the urgency between those two because they're going to be fighting for a lot of the same kids. If UTSA maybe has the upper hand by having players come to the Roadrunners that want to play more regional teams, maybe it proves that they're in the place that they ultimately should be anyway. But I think for the Pac's sake, that would be a great addition. And outside of Memphis and Tulane, who have been kind of priorities from the start, that would be the next option up, I would say.
Yeah, and one of the reasons is that you have a major metropolitan area in San Antonio. There are a lot of good college towns, Lubbock and Waco and all of that stuff, but they are not major metropolitan areas. San Antonio is a legit metropolitan area. When you look at the state of Texas, you look at Dallas to the north, you look at Houston, obviously, who's in the top 4 markets now population-wise in the southeastern part, and you look at San Antonio, also happen to be 3 professional markets and great facilities in San Antonio. So that would be the logical choice if it is a financial possibility within the confines of a very recent entrant. 2023, I think, is when they joined the American Conference, right? It's only been a couple of years, correct?
Yeah, and they're taking full advantage of it. So curious to see how those two teams, those programs, how they react to how the landscape shapes over the next couple of years.
Yep. And then, Robert, you asked about UConn. Now, UConn, as we've talked, from a basketball standpoint, and keep in mind now, UConn's football team is still independent. They're an FBS school, but they are an independent. And then basketball and all other sports for UConn are in the Big East. But it was Brett Yormark, the commissioner of the Big 12. Fresno State and UConn, that was his cause célèbre. That's what he tried to carry into the conference, even after the implosion that left 4 schools available from the original Pac-12. And again, as we talked ad nauseum about it, because of the escalator clause, it caused the networks to have to pay instead of the conference to pay for those schools. That was a very badly written contract in that regard for the networks, for ESPN and Fox, particularly ESPN. We talked about it many times. But what happened there is you still had Yormark, even when that essentially meant there was no room at the end, that they were full up with 16 teams, and you had university presidents that were satiated at that point, and that was one of the problems. Yormark still persisted in going back, saying, I want to add Fresno State and UConn. I want UConn basketball in there, and I want Fresno State for the state of California. I want to get in, and he went back to the networks and stated his case, and the network said, you know what, it's elephant ears with our pockets. Fox said, hey, ask ESPN, and ESPN said, we're mad enough about this contractual deal. Don't ask us for more money. You want to pay for more schools, go right ahead. We're glad to take them, but we're not paying for them. But that was the reason that Yormark wanted UConn. He wanted UConn for basketball. The only reason right now, Jackson, you would take UConn for football only would be, number one, their basketball program is making too much money in the Big East and doesn't want to leave. And number two, it would be kind of like if you want to try to entice Giannis, you bring his brother along first, you know what I mean, and say, hey, Giannis, guess what? We're bringing your brother onto our roster. Would you like to sign with us? That would be the only reason to bring UConn football, correct, Jackson, to say, let's bring UConn football and then maybe basketball would come later? Would that be the main motivation, in your opinion, for the Pac?
I would think so, unless you're just really desperate for a nice football number, and not to say UConn's a bad option. It's just
really
there's not many options that aren't tied with conferences and buyouts. So that would be one of the options on the table without taking the New Mexico State or something like that.
Yeah, that's dating her sister so you can get in the house. That's what that's about. So I've heard, okay? Not that I would have ever done anything as nefarious as that. You know that, Jackson. Come on. But we'll see, Robert, to answer your question. You never say never about anything conference affiliation, and you just brought up maybe the most cogent point. When you start to look at the laundry list, you know, we talk about it right in professional sport all the time, Jackson. The best ability is availability. Just look at how many guys are out right now in the NBA playoffs, right? Star players. All right. It's the same thing right now with these schools, right? The best school for you, Jackson, is one that's actually available, because how many are really available out there that aren't already tied up into conferences and the very tough out sometime financially, correct?
Yeah, there's not many. The schools you would want would be in the American, and even without buyouts, it might be tough to price some of them away. We'll see if the Pac can get the upper hand here the next couple of years. But, yeah, the buyouts have been a major roadblock for a lot of these schools, and that's the reason why Texas State is here. I think they've ultimately been a great addition, and they're trending in the right direction. But it probably took some selling once that name showed up in the first place, and maybe there's another program they can prop up next.
But I know this, with UConn or whatever, if there's a financial move that makes sense currently, even if it's basketball waiting in the wings, if you will, you go ahead and do it. As far as, and if it's not there, you don't force it. As far as the state of Texas, I think you and I are in agreement, and I think the rest of the conference understands, as you brought up, you need a ninth football team so you don't have this 4-3 stilted scheduling beyond this upcoming year or next year or two. But, Jackson, you do need, in a state as large as Texas, and you're 2 time zones over, you do need that travel partner, right? You've got to find them. It's one thing what's going on, for instance, in the Big 12 with UCF. They wanted to get into Florida recruiting-wise for a conference that's trying to build, that isn't just trying to grab one school. You do need to get that second school in a fairly big hurry, right? Because you got to get to 9, or it's going to be a mess long-term for football. Am I right?
Yeah, I would think that would be the place to go, unless you can grab UNLV after some of this legislation gets taken care of. There's just not many options, and especially with so many of the Texas options being in the American and having those buyout issues, it makes it difficult. Then you start looking at the Sun Belt and maybe going over state lines to Louisiana, or that's about your next best option from there. So probably long term, if you can't do it, it might be best to sit tight. But in the short term, you sure would like to find that team.
Well, I know this UNLV, we've talked about it over and over again, the dysfunction there from a corporate standpoint, particularly with the patches now that you can put on the jerseys and all of that. They have a great corporate advantage in Vegas. They have the Visitors Bureau. They love to get their name out there. They also have the complication now very shortly, all 4 major professional sports, and if you want to count the WNBA, all 5 major professional sports are going to be there in short order, because the A's will be there in 2028. Expansion for the NBA is certainly going to include Vegas. So you have all that competition, but you also have all that money flowing in. But what you clearly have in Vegas is some sort of administrative dysfunction between the desire of the academic end, or the business end, if you want to call it that, of the university, and the athletic department. And unless they can get on the same page there, they are not going to be an attractive school where they can close the deal with any conference until any other conference is sure that you have an administrative end and an athletic end that are moving in the same direction, and that is not the case at UNLV right now, that's for sure. All right, Jackson, before I let you go, we get too short on time. You'll be back, of course, on Friday. Want to ask you about your takeaway from spring preview. And first, and I talked to Paul about it yesterday, how serious is the Brandon Ramirez situation going into the season itself?
It did not look good on Saturday. He was on crutches. You always get concerned when you see that. Sometimes it's not as bad as it looks. Sometimes it is pretty significant. Don't know for sure. Talked to Coach Ince after the scrimmage, and he just referenced him and one other player, Micah Mosley, transferred defensive end from Sac State, 2 players that suffered injuries. Really the only ones they expect to be out any longer than May. There's some players coming off surgeries that never participated in spring, a few minor injuries throughout the course of spring, and some illness, some players that didn't play on Saturday. But pretty much the whole roster, minus those 2, it sounds like is going to be good to go for summer workouts. But we don't really have a clarification exactly what the situation is with Ramirez. Coach Ince hasn't said for sure how bad they think it is. And so we'll continue to monitor that and see over the summer and towards fall camp if he's able to make a return. But I think probably right now you're leaning towards seeing maybe if Julius Gillett can prepare himself to fill that role for at least the beginning of the season, if not longer.
Well, we've talked about the unique talent of Speedy Luke and also of Bryson Donaldson, and it's not, again, to diminish at all Brandon Ramirez. I mean, he was another key cog. But is he in a position, because of depth behind him, as you mentioned, a little bit less of a blow if he can't go as opposed to the other 2? I mean, and I'm not at all diminishing the import of Brandon Ramirez, but the depth there, is it better than what you'd have behind Luke, who very hard to find someone with his skill set, and with Donaldson as well? Is this, if you're going to have to go without one of your big 3 for a period of time, is this the one that you were most able to replace, I guess is the best way to phrase it?
It's twofold, where most teams, if they had Rayshon Speedy Luke and Bryson Donaldson, I think you'd feel pretty good running the offense through those 2 players over the course of the season. And between the 2 of them, you figure at least one will stay healthy. But also at Fresno State, we saw how important it was, the Dogs, that they had 5 running backs all the way to the end of the season. I mean, Jonathan Arsenault was one of the hotter players at the end of the year. Ramirez himself had 100 yards in the last 2 games combined, and Elijah Gilliam also had some big moments the last couple of games. So I think they were counting on having 5 players just with this scheme. And you still have Julius Gillett, you still have Tariq Taylor, or Thomas, excuse me. So you've got at least 4, maybe someone else steps up. But at least schematically, I think Gillett is a guy that may be able to do some of the things that Ramirez did. And hopefully those 4 players can stay healthy so that they don't have to be short on running backs by the end of the year.
Last couple of things. Again, we'll reconvene on Friday, and I urge everybody to visit the board at barkboard.com. They still have the 50% offer right now for the Insider Board, a great deal, so check that out at barkboard.com. But Jackson, your overview of what you saw in the entirety, never mind the preview itself, but the entirety of the practices, what you were able to see of those 15 practices. I know nothing definitive gets solved during spring. Usually what you knew going in is what you know coming out. You just try to refine things. But your takeaway overall, are we settled that Martin is going to be the quarterback more than likely? And are there any big question marks that you still see remaining before fall camp? Because it is going to be now radio silence until we get into that start of August and fall camp.
Yeah, I think probably my biggest takeaway overall was just how good the defense is. I wasn't sure. They were obviously spectacular last season. Had some statistics we haven't seen at Fresno State in quite some time. But they did have to replace a lot of seniors, and weren't sure if they were going to be able to do all that, if maybe the offense would have to pick up some of the slack to counterbalance some of that. But the defense was lights out for the majority of spring from what I've heard, and they looked like it in the spring preview as well. They didn't give up much of anything on those full field drives that made up about 5 possessions of the spring preview. No points were scored by the offense on those drives. And you just see, I think probably my biggest takeaway as well from the spring preview specifically was just how one-sided the trenches were when you got down to the reserves on the lines. Fresno State's D-line, coaches have been talking about how they're maybe 6 deep at tackle and 6 deep at end. And when you saw those second and third team D-liners take on the second and third team offensive line, it was definitely a difference in talent. And so it made it tough for the offense to run some of that as well. So very encouraged by the defense. Not to say that I'm discouraged by the offense. I think as far as the quarterback battle goes, if you're Jaden Randall, I think you got to be pretty happy by the way the spring preview went. Statistically, he had more go his way, and there was only the one interception between the two. Christian Martin threw it, albeit through the hands of a receiver, so it's tough to really blame him on that one. But, both quarterbacks, I thought, showed signs and moved the offense fairly well. No one had a huge highlight as far as the 11-on-11 went. So at least from our sample size there, I wouldn't say the quarterback battle's decided at all. You still assume Martin's going to figure out a way to settle in and be the guy based off of the effort they did to bring him in. But Mandel certainly showed on Saturday that it's definitely a battle.
Well, the next time we see him on the field and they have conditioning and voluntary workouts, in a formal setting, it will be as we mentioned, the very apropos fall camp in Fresno, California. Bring your stadium jacket, as I tell you all the time, Jack. That's what you need at the start of August in this town. All right, last thing for you, and again, we'll reconvene on Friday. I brought it up with Paul yesterday. How surprised are you that Benedetto and basically the entirety of the coaching staff pretty much is coming back? Because usually when you have the success, and as we said, except for the Colorado State game, the defense was just outstanding down the stretch. Guys came back. That's a testament to Matt Ensign, I guess, the quality of life here. But are you surprised that everybody is coming back by and large?
Somewhat. I know Coach Benedetto wanted to come back and continue to see this thing out. I also know he had some powerful offers, from my understanding, that's been reported, and I would assume he would have got those. So, at least one more year with him and his crew. I think there's also a lot of loyalty between that group. A lot of the staff came with him from NIU the year before. So, I'm not stunned it worked out, but it just feels like one of those things. In most cases, if you're Fresno State, you probably lose that D coordinator and most of his assistants. But I think there's been a real special connection here with Coach Benedetto and Fresno State and Coach Ince to where they're at least going to roll this thing another year, and we'll see what happens after that.
Well, I'll tell you what, we're looking forward to this season, that's for sure. It has not been a great athletic, academic year beyond football, but it certainly is a hoped-for great start with football for the 26-27 year. And after that, like to see basketball, both men's and women's, and the bat and ball sports to get back to what they really need to be to make, as I've mentioned so many times, this a vibrant 9-month academic/athletic department, so that you're in a position where when football ends, you're excited about the basketball programs. When basketball ends, you're excited about the baseball programs, and before you and softball, and before you know it, you're back around to the summer and headed to another year. We'll see what happens as we get ready for fall camp in August. Jackson, I appreciate everything you do for me. Hope people, again, take you up on that 50% off the Insider Board, and I will talk to you on Friday, my friend. Take care.
All right, you too, Tony. Thank you.
All right, Artis, back to co-host Jackson Moore, barkboard.com. Take a break, come back, tell you about the schedule and the Giants coming up in fairly short order at 3:10 today as they start the road trip in Philly. They'll go Philly and then to Tampa, to St. Pete to play the Rays before they're back home to play the Padres, who had one of the strangest ninth innings I've ever seen last night. I'll tell you about it after the break as the Bulldog Hour continues on this Tuesday on Central Valley Sports Leader, 1430 ESPN.
Ed Dina's the dealer in Dinuba that does. Yes, he does.
Tax season is over, but the upgrades are just getting started at Ed Dina's Auto Center. Now's the time to drive home in a rugged Chevrolet Silverado or step into a premium GMC Sierra. Check out our SUVs like the Chevy Tahoe and GMC Yukon. At Ed Dina's, we do more than sell vehicles. We customize them your way. With strong trade-in values, easy financing, and inventory ready to go, your next ride is waiting at EdDinasAutoCenter.com.
Precision Civil Engineering is building the Valley from the ground up. From planning and land surveying to civil engineering and construction management, they handle it all with the experience you can trust. Proud sponsors of Fresno State Athletics, Precision brings that same commitment to excellence to every project. With over 20 years of experience, they're helping shape the communities we live and work in every day.
From concept to completion, it's all done with precision. Learn more at precisioneng.com. Go Dogs!
Citizens Business Bank is a proud sponsor of the Fresno State Bulldogs. Hi, I'm Susan Woosner, Senior Vice President and Manager of Citizens Business Bank in Fresno. We proudly support California's thriving small to medium-sized businesses. Our relationship-based approach and straightforward business model set us apart in the financial services industry. We are a banking partner that understands your industry and your company. Whether you're expanding operations or planning for the future, Citizens Business Bank is here to help ensure your banking experience is smooth, convenient, and aligned with your success. My team strives to build long-term banking relationships by getting to personally know you and your business, and then providing you with a wide array of powerful solutions customized to your unique financial needs. Visit cbbank.com to learn how Citizens Business Bank can help contribute to your success. That's cbbank.com. Citizens Business Bank, N.A., Equal Housing Lender, member FDIC.
The weather in Fresno is, well, crazy. 31 degrees one day, 71 the next. We're famous for going from winter to summer in the blink of an eye. And you know what that means? It's time to have your air conditioner serviced. Regular AC maintenance doesn't cost. It's an investment that pays. For 56 years, Donald P. Dick Air Conditioning has provided trusted HVAC service to the Central Valley. Annual checkups keep your system running smoothly and help prevent costly repairs. The specialists at Donald P. Dick can locate problems early, saving you money and stress. Sign up for our Super Saver program. It's just a few bucks a month. You'll get 15% off repairs and 2 professional tune-ups a year to keep your efficiency up and your PG&E bill down. For fast, reliable service and over 5 decades of experience, call Mr. Cool at 559-255-1644. That's Donald P. Dick Air Conditioning at 255-1644.
Everybody, welcome back. 2:53. A few minutes to go in the show. Thanks again to Jackson for his time. The Giants are coming up at 3:10. Bill normally 3 to 6 with his great skill behind the bench, including Thursdays at Fashion Furniture with our buddy Rod Avedikian. El Paso across from River Park, best furniture on the planet, nothing like it in all of California. They have the clear the floor sale going right now at Fashion Furniture, and anytime Phil is there, some good eats and always a great conversation. You can always reach Phil on the Lee's Air hotline, 559-320-1430. Giants, of course, will take his show off a lot this week because they not only have the games in Philly, but they also have an early start Friday in Tampa St. Pete. Thursday, however, they have the morning game our time from Philly to wrap up that 3-game series that starts tonight, and that means that on Thursday it will be Fashion Furniture at 3 o'clock, and so stay tuned for that. What I want to address right now before I go over the schedule, courtesy of Ed Dunkel and his great business, Precision Civil Engineering, our buddy Craig Campbell, the Campbell family, one of the great basketball families you're going to find anywhere, and he sent me an email, and Craig, I saw this very jarring news last week, and I was going to address it. It just so happened that I was preempted the day after I saw it, and that is that Brian Campbell passed away. Brian Campbell he's my age, was a great player at Hoover, terrific JC player. He was unguardable, and I've talked about this before, whether it was a formal setting of the NYL or whether we were talking about Don Bolin opening up the gym at Hoover or Tom Smith at McLean or whatever, pickup game after pickup game against Brian Campbell, and you could not guard Brian Campbell, and he would not miss. Honest to God, you could play all day, and he would cross over and he would pull up, free throw line extended between the top of the key. This is before the days of the three-point shot, of course, and he would just torment you. He was a great, great player and a terrific guy, and we've talked about him before, and I was so saddened, Craig, to see that he had passed away and left us far too young at age 69, and I was just crushed to see it. And, you know, to you and the entire family and Todd and everybody, man, what a wonderful guy, and to his nuclear family as well, our sympathies. And what Craig mentioned, and I do want to bring this up, there's a service at Belmont Memorial on the 29th, which is tomorrow. And so anybody who knew Brian at all, I would urge you to pay your respects. And like I said, There's never been a better, more consistent jump shooter in the mid-range, and he was quicker than a cat's behind out there. And a great guy and a great player, and like I said, it just really hits home because he is the same age. And, man, I watched him at Hoover, and boy, could he play. And at JC as well. Thanks, Craig, for sending it in. My sympathies to the entire family, that's for sure. All right, that having been said, it's always an awkward transition back to, it's not the toy department, but it is sport on the court itself. And I do want to spend a moment here to tell you about our schedule for both 1430 and 790, courtesy of our pal Ed Dunkel and his great business, Precision Civil Engineering, planning, land surveying, civil engineering, landscape architecture, construction management, under one roof, 449-4500, precisioneng.net for more information. And we commend Ed for the great fundraising that he does throughout the Valley, but in particular for his alma mater, Fresno State, through the Lyles College of Engineering. The goal is always to unify athletics and academics to provide more funding resources to students. It's worked beautifully over the years, and a lot of those grads from the Lyles College of Engineering had to work for Ed at Precision Civil Engineering, one of the best civil engineering companies you're going to find anywhere in the world, and we really appreciate his great sponsorship and his support of athletics and of Fresno State and the Valley as a whole. As far as the lineup goes, I mentioned the Giants, 3:10 the pre, 3:40 the first pitch, couple of late afternoon games, evening games in Philly, of course, then a morning game, an afternoon game, Philly time on Thursday. The A's, who, by the way, well, nobody's been looking, are leading the AL West. I don't know how long it's going to last, but they are up top in the AL West. They start a series in Sacramento tonight, 6 o'clock the pre, 6:40 the first pitch against the Kansas City Royals, so those games are over on 790. And then tomorrow, the Lakers have a critically, and I do mean critically important Game 5 at the Crypt, because they're in a position right now where they do not want, or excuse me, Game 6. Yes, no, it's Game 5. Hold on. They do not want to go back to Game 6 in Houston. Durant is going to be out again tomorrow. Reeves may be back in tomorrow for the Lakers, but LeBron knows all too well what it's like to be down 3-1 and come back and win a series, and he knows how easy it can get away when you're up 3-1, particularly when you have guys hurt. Cleveland won a series against the Warriors when Steph was hurt earlier, continued to play through it. Iguodala was hurt, Livingston was hurt, and Bogut was lost. All of that happened during Game 5 in 2016 when the suspension was there for Draymond. So LeBron knows how quickly it can get away on either side. So the Lakers really need to end this thing tomorrow at the Crypt, because if they don't, and they go back to Houston for Game 6, Durant likely will be back by then. Then you face the specter of what could happen to you in that final Game 7. So we'll see what happens. Also want to remind you, Paul Metters has two fine shows. The Sunward Sports Show, 6 o'clock on 790 on Wednesdays, and then Central Valley Sports Report on 1430 from First String Sports, 10 a.m. to noon on Saturdays. Everything was station 1430 ESPNFresno.com. Get the live links and podcasts there. Thanks to Joe Cruz. Thanks to Ed Dunkel. Thanks to the guys at Lee's Air Plumbing, Heating, and Roofing. Giants coming up in 10 minutes. Thanks to Jorge, and thanks as always to Jackson. This is KFIG Fresno.
Hey, football fans, you know what makes a team great on the gridiron? It's when all the players do their part to make everything work. That's what Superior Pipe can do for your food processing plant, chemical plant, boiler service, or tank truck. Thanks to their reliable and durable pipes, valves, and fittings, you can be sure that everything that makes your team perform is running strong. And with their same-day service and competitive pricing...
A new anti-tanking draft reform. Proposal includes expanding the lottery to 16 teams, flattening the odds, and penalizes teams with the worst 3 records by lowering their odds. Owners vote on the proposal next month. NBA playoffs, first round, Hawks-Knicks, pivotal Game 5 tonight.